Good day, everyone. My name is Gerard Linda. I'm Director of Tax and Compliance, and today I'm just sitting with Francois le Clus, Investment Advisor at Attooh, and together we're just going to unpack and just have a little bit of a chat about the current budget speech that was done last week. We just want to give you some of our thoughts, what we think, and then yeah. So let's get into it. Thank you for joining us, Francois. Just give us a bit of what you thought of the budget as a whole. And in summary, your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think it was quite interesting. You know, when we hear that there's going to be the budget speech, we all cringe a little bit because we're thinking, okay, how much are they going to tax us this year? What extremes are they going to go to? But this year, I think we've had a lot of positive things. I don't think the changes are too hectic. There are one or two, how can I say, debatable changes that have been made, but all in all, you know, I think Tito Mboweni he's done really well. I think he understands the economy really well, and I think he's actually on the right path.
Yeah, no, I agree. There was certainly some surprises that sprang up. Actually, some good things that people didn't expect, because the first thing that you think about the budget speech is increased taxes. So we'll have a discussion on that later. Just first off, diving in, just quickly in his first few paragraphs, he mentioned that our revenue is about 1.3 trillion. But also just a bit further on, if you just read, our spending is closer to 2 trillion. So it means that we're constantly in a deficit. So that's probably one of the main reasons why we aren't growing. What's your thoughts on, our, spending way above, what we earn, and how we can just try to get away from that?
Yeah, I think just first look on that. I mean, we've got a deficit of about 14%. Tito is trying to get that down to 7.5%, and then close to 0.8% in about 2023, 2024. So I think he's really trying his best, and I think the measures that he's putting in might help us getting there. So yeah, long story short, South Africans, we've had a long history with debt. I mean, per capita, we're the third most in-debt country in the world. So South Africans really do struggle with debt. One of the things that I think plays a part is people are uneducated when it comes to debt. They don't understand debt. So yeah, I think that's a huge problem in South Africa. And hopefully, I mean, with a personal income tax bracket that have changed a little bit, they can free up cash flow. People can start paying off their debt a little bit sooner, or actually just pay off their debt.
Yeah, just taking what you said, just so that people understand, it's like you're living way beyond your means. It's like South Africa's earning 1.3 trillion, we're almost spending 2 trillion. It means that like we're overspending by 7 trillion. And if we just take it into our own lives, it just means you can't live beyond your budget. And I think that's something that we're going to look into the future, is how can we manage, this sort of thing in your own personal lives, because that's what we're all guilty of. Sometimes we earn a thing and we don't keep to our budgets, we use our credit cards, and then we live beyond our means. And that's why we're in trouble most of the times.
Yeah, exactly true. Exactly true. I think we've got a little bit of a problem when it comes to one, budgeting, and two, trying to live beyond our means and looking at the other person and trying to live that same lifestyle, and then we sort of get stuck. So I think it comes down to being comfortable in your own skin and being comfortable in the situation that you are in, and not being, taken hold of the lifestyle and everything that people want to portray these days.
Yeah, no, it's just important just to keep, those sort of things that get you in trouble. So just be comfortable with who you are, and not try to please everyone in this whole social media environment that we're in, portraying a picture that's something that you're not, because at the end of the day, we're paying the price, and that's more or less on a bigger scale where the country is at. So so definitely something that we'll look into the future, maybe discussing how we can manage our own budgets and to work more cleverly with our money. And if we just jump to the next point, if we get straight into the taxes, the biggest thing that came to mind is like we all thought the increases. There were actually some decreases. Company tax went from 28 to 27%, which is actually huge if you want to think of maybe starting a company, or if you're currently owning a company and you're actually profitable. There's that 1% can make a nice difference. And then also the increase of the individual's tax brackets by 5%. So the increase sounds like we are paying more, but that's not actually the case. So why don't you just take us through, both of those?
Yeah, basically, as you said, the company tax being lowered from 28 to 27%, that'll come into effect 1 April 2022. But I mean, again, I think that's a great stimulus type idea from Tito and Biweni to say, well, listen, let's free up cash flow for guys to get, more capital for projects, so that they can expand. And hopefully with that, we can start employing more people. As we know, that's a huge problem in South Africa as well. So hopefully the companies won't sit on that 1%. Hopefully they'll utilize it. If they're smart, they'll utilize it for new projects and expanding their businesses. And then on an individual level, I mean, that 5% doesn't seem like much, but for the average South African, that's basically above inflation difference that you're getting. So that was a very nice little thing that Tito did for us. Now, a big problem that he might be faced with is the government employees and their freeze for the next 3 years.
Yeah, so just in short, for the people just to understand that tax bracket increase just means that either moving to the next bracket or falling in a bracket just below, that might mean that you pay you're going to pay less tax in any case, but it doesn't mean you're paying 5% more. It's just the threshold of earning your yearly income has just been increased so that you don't pay more taxes like what's happened in the past. So you mentioned about stimulating the economy and trying to improve, and that also boils down to how do we get into that deficit between what we're spending and what we're earning. And that's trying to activate our country and our people to see, can we not kickstart a bit more businesses or the individuals, touching on you've got this little bit of tax saving as well now. And now that, again, we'll get back to, it's all going to come back to your budget. Now you may be paying less tax, but what are you doing with that excess now that you have it? Like, that people now think, I've got a bit more, so let's spend a bit more. But maybe that should go towards maybe your investment or maybe repaying some of your debt.
I definitely think it should go into repaying your debt. As I said, we've got a huge pandemic in South Africa when it comes to stuff like this. So hopefully people will be wise and utilize that towards paying their debt off a little bit quicker. I think at the end of the day, it's a little bit controversial, but when it comes to paying off debt versus putting the money into investment, I mean, you just have to look at the interest rate. Whichever interest rate is high, you need to pay off that one first. If you're getting 10% out of your investment and you're only paying 7% interest, obviously better putting it into the investment. But that's rarely the case. I mean, South Africans, most of us have credit cards or even personal loans. Those personal loans have historically, high rates. So paying off those debts are always, number one priority when it comes to your financial planning. That's basically that.
Yeah, interesting for me. Like, this all boils down to growing the economy and try to get it down. But one of the biggest issues that we all know about is this huge, corruption that's in our country. And I think just recently we've been announced the most corrupt country in the world. And there's no way we can make up this deficit or even thrive if we've got corruption. And then one of the things that came out of the budget speech is that the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development got an additional 1.8 billion to improve their business processes, which is obviously a good step forward to try enhance the protocols for people not to swindle money so easily and to spend the public money that they already have a little bit better. So that's for me a good step in the right direction.
100%, Gerard. I mean, that's a huge thing. I think Tito's faced a lot of headwind within the ANC. I think he's been put under a lot of pressure to increase taxes wherever he can. But at the end of the day, I think he's very, very smart. He understands that it's basically increasing taxes is basically like putting, a plaster on the gates of the Attooh Dam. You're not going to flip and do that. It's impossible. definitely. I think the country is, according to me, I think the country is on the right track. You know, they're putting money in the right places now. And once you stop corruption or start curbing corruption a little bit more, once there are a lot more consequences, I think people will start thinking twice when it comes to, you know, dodgy dealings.
Yeah. The thing that you mentioned a little bit, we just want to get more information on, is that you talked a bit about the freeze of the public wages. You know, what does that mean, and what does that entail in terms of the budget?
Okay, so our public sector wage bill is 14%, closer to 15%. So that is a huge chunk out of the GDP. I mean, that's higher than Canada, which is at 12%, and Germany, that's at 8%. So our public sector wage bill is pretty big. Now, yes, that is understandable. We're a developing country, and we've had a lot of struggles in the past. So that's definitely normal, but our wage bill is just too big. It's huge, and it's all because they are, how can I put it, very highly paid for the jobs that they actually do. Now, they've had, from 2006 up until 2018, they've had an inflationary increase of close to 74%, okay, which in real terms, they've had an increase of more than 3% above inflation year on year. We know a lot of corporates haven't given that to their employees over the past few years, where they've maybe had 5%, maybe had 4%, depending on the company, and sometimes there were no increases. So I think the public sector, basically, yes, they need to understand that the country as a whole is a little bit like a company. You need to look after it, and there's just too big of a suck in there when it comes to wages. So we also feel, and most of us actually think that, you know, the guys at the top are the problem. You know, they're taking too much pay. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem is with your lower and medium income bracket there. They've had the highest increases over the past few years, which I only saw a few days ago when I read up on it. So the problem is not at the top. The problem is your low and your middle income bracket there in the State Department. As well, their income's grown a lot bigger than their productivity and the growth of the country. So putting them on freeze, I mean, I'm putting myself out here for a little bit of scrutiny, but the freeze on that isn't too bad. The country, they estimate that it's going to be around 300 billion rand that they'll be able to save over the past for the past 3 years on public sector wages, which makes a huge difference to all of us.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think if you want to change things in any sphere of business or life, is change needs to happen at the top, and then people have to take responsibility, and that has to filter through. So people who's you know, at the highest tier can implement those sort of things, then it's for the rest to follow. You hardly ever change a regime or anything from the bottom up. You have to change it from the top down. So it's good to see that people maybe take responsibility, and then it's just the responsibility further to carry on, you know, from that, to see how, okay, where can everyone help? Because at the end of the day, that's probably how we're going to solve this this mess that we're currently in. Just an ending here, you know, Francois, is there anything else that stands out from the budget that you want to touch on, or just your final thoughts on where we are at and what the budget says further?
You know what, I'm actually quite positive about things. I'm very positive about Tito Mboweni. I think he's really doing a good job. I think we, at ground level, we don't quite understand the pressure that he's put on on an everyday basis. So I think, you know, he's done a real good job. We thought things would be a lot more hectic, and it hasn't been. That of anything, he's, you know, trying to stimulate the economy a little bit more, which is great. Tax hikes have never been good for economies if you look over the past 100 years. So decreasing taxes have been great. I think it's a great move from him. Yes, he's going to face some headwinds now from all the labor unions, but you know what? I think it's a great thing that he's done. I'm quite positive about where the country's going. You know, it's great. It's a great time actually to be in now in South Africa.
Right. Thank you so much, Francois, for chipping in and joining us today. We look forward to having you on a lot more. We're going to have a lot more discussions on financial well-being. These discussions to maybe try to help you as an individual and maybe a company to improve and to see how can we, do our own budget, save, talk a bit about our investments, that sort of thing. So a lot of good things to come. Any final words from you?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity. Looking forward to seeing you again.
Great. So thanks for joining us today, guys. Like and subscribe. Our buttons are in the screen below. Just in the comments, if you want to get into contact with us, our links will be there. You can speak to me. You can speak to Francois. Please make contact with us if you like a bit more information in terms of your financial well-being. We look forward to assisting you in this journey. And then until next time, we see you.